Hi guys, Barry from Copper vs Glass here, and today we're going to be talking about headphones. Now, in my opinion, headphones are probably one of the quickest and easiest ways to enhance a mobile device, such as a phone, because it gives you better sound by a million miles than the headphones you usually get in the box with your mobile phone. Now, I will preface this by saying that a lot of people out there are instantly going to say, well, headphones, I don't really care, I listen to the occasional song and I make a phone call, so I don't really care about having good headphones. But in my experience, most people that have gone ahead and chosen to buy extra headphones separately and spent a little bit of money on them massively go back on that and say, headphones are well worth it. So today I'm going to be looking at the Klipsch S4As for Android phones. And let's take a look and see if they're any good and why you might want to buy them. Now, Klipsch, as you may or may not know, are a pretty good company for headphones. They make pretty much one of the most well-renowned, decent quality, decent price in-ear headphones, which is the S4As, and the I in this case stands for the iPhone or iDevices. So the little remote on the headphones is used to control iDevices. Now the S4As, which is these ones, are pretty much the same. They are the same exact headphones, earbuds, and they've still got a remote on them, but they're designed for Android devices. Because if you don't know, Android devices actually don't have the same capabilities to do things like volume control on the little switch on the headphones than iDevices do, so it's actually more complicated. That's why a lot of Android specific headphones you'll see won't have a volume button, it's just a play, pause and stop button. So the S4As promise to bring all of that functionality such as volume control and things like that to Android, but there is a caveat. And that caveat is that to make this work properly, you have to download an application to your phone to interact with the headphones to add these additional features. Essentially, it's just making sense of what the button presses are doing and translating that to your Android device. Now, before we go on to that, let's actually have a look at the headphones themselves. So here are the buds. They are a fairly good design. You'll notice that the left and the right earbud are actually angled up slightly, which makes them better for going in your ear, and that's a little bit unintuitive actually as to, first of all, which one goes in which, because it's actually pointing the other way you'd think. But they're really good design. The tips are actually an oval shape, which are supposedly great for going in the ear and blocking out sound a lot more. And I can say that based on other in-ear headphones I've tested, the oval shape of the bud compared to a circle actually is better for fitting in the ear and blocking out more sound. The only caveats that I have with the actual tips of the buds themselves are that they actually feel quite plasticky and quite light, and potentially not as well made as you might think for this high quality headphone. The wire actually is a little bit thinner than I would normally like to see in a headphone. Thinner wires do tangle a lot more, but luckily I take care of my cables and wrap them in such a way that I don't really get them tangled. But be careful if you do that, because they are quite thin. Also, I'm a little bit wary that these coming out of the headphones here are quite easily bended and they can fray sometimes, so do be careful of that. The actual tips themselves, of course, can be removed and replaced. As you can see there, they've got a little pull-off bit, and they actually have a line on the top of the headphones that you have to line up with the bud so that the oval shape is in the correct shape to go in your ear properly, so it's an oval from top to bottom, tallest at the top and bottom. If we move down the headphone, of course, we can see they're a classic Y shape, and on the right hand one you'll have the little toggle switch. Now if you can see that, it's got one button compared to iOS headphones, which usually have three: volume up, volume down, and the center button, which does multiple things. This one has one button and the microphone on the same side, and one side is just completely blank. Now this button, and this is relating to the application as well, does three things, just one button. A single click will play and pause music, it will answer phone calls, and it won't hang up phone calls, which is interesting, right? With the app enabled, ending a phone call is actually 3 clicks, which is a bit strange, and you actually can't customize it in the application to be a single click because you can only choose one action per click. A double click is next track, and a triple click, as I said, is an end call. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If you hold the button down, it will actually activate the volume control. What it does is it puts the volume to 0 and then gradually increases the volume. You just let go whenever the volume is at what you want it to be. And we're going to move on to some of the more app stuff in a second. As we go down the headphone, you'll see we've got a slider which allows us to choose where the Y splits in the headphones, so you can have it all the way down the bottom, or you can put it up to where the remote is and have a very small V shape. Then it goes into the splitter, and then it goes down into the rest of the cable. This is a standard cable length, it's about 1 meter, and the bottom half here is nice and thick, which is what I would like to see, of course, because it's got 2 wires in it, so it's going to be thicker. And then we'll go down to the very bottom, and this is again another one of my slight gripes. It's at the bottom is just a straight headphone jack. A lot of the good headphone products you'll see are actually a L-shaped jack, which is actually stronger and will stop a lot of fraying and bending, but I haven't had any issues so far, so we'll see. And as you can see, it's got a 3-part separated jack, which will enable things like communication for volume and play and pause and things like that. So now that's the headphones covered, let's actually move on to the application itself. Now the application, as I said, it allows you to customize what it does and what it doesn't do, and it actually enables things like the volume control and so on and so forth. However, I'm using a Nexus 4, as many of you know, which is a stock Google phone. It's pretty much the benchmark in Google phones. And this app doesn't work very well with it at all. First of all, the app design is pretty awful. It looks like a gingerbread app. It's really bad and it hasn't been updated in a while. I can only imagine that if it was on iOS it would look amazing, because people don't tend to care about design on Android for some reason. So the app itself looks horrible, and the functionality, I have to say, is pretty horrible as well. With the application enabled, because you can turn it on and off inside the app, the volume function, first of all, does not work. If I hold down the button, it brings up the Google Now voice search, which again doesn't really work very well. The double click to skip tracks sometimes doesn't work, and if I'm on a phone call, a single click to hang up, or a triple click, doesn't work either, so I can't really hang up a phone call. As well, if I'm listening to the podcast, for example, I use Pocket Cast to listen to podcasts. If I'm playing that and I want to pause it, single click, right? I do that and it actually fires up the music app and starts playing music. If I then pause the music, it then starts playing back the podcast application. Even if I go into the settings of the Klipsch application and specify that my music app is the podcast app, it doesn't actually change anything, so not very good there. So I've actually found that disabling the app or just uninstalling it completely gives me near normal functionality, which is play and pause, single click, double click is skip track, but it doesn't of course have volume controls. So the app is pretty terrible. But that said, for the price of these headphones, you can't really go wrong. The sound quality is pretty amazing. The standard play and pause functionality work on all Android devices, and yeah, the quality is probably the best thing about them. So if you're going to buy extra headphones for your device, do look at these, especially for Android, and the S4As for iDevices. But yeah, for the price you really can't go wrong with sound quality, but don't expect the Android version to be as compatible as it appears to be on the box or from the website and how they're selling them, basically, because it probably isn't going to be. But anyway, this is Barry from Copy Glass reviewing the S4A headphones from Klipsch, and yeah, I think you should buy them.